Betrayal doesn't always scream. Sometimes it barely whispers. It curls into quiet corners of your life, slides into forgotten drawers, and folds itself between moments so ordinary, you never think to question them. I never imagined that the thing to finally undo me would come not with shouting or slammed doors, but with silence, and a letter. It started on a morning like any other. I was searching for an old photo album, one of those oversized ones from the 90s, filled with pictures of Claire with missing front teeth and Jessica in sun hats. I was halfway through digging out boxes in the back of our bedroom closet when I found it. Not the album. Something else. A box. Wooden. Polished. Too beautiful to be buried under dusty coats, and a forgotten yoga mat. I didn't recognize it. I knew everything in that closet. Everything in this house, really. I was the one who organized it all. That box wasn't mine. And I was almost sure it wasn't Jessica's either. It was smooth and cool to the touch. It opened with a soft click. Inside, just one thing. A letter. Folded. No stamp. No envelope. Just a page, creased gently in thirds, with my name written on it in handwriting that was painfully familiar, yet distant. To Dad. Claire. I sat down on the edge of the bed, the letter in my hands, unable to open it right away. My pulse was heavy. Loud in my ears. We hadn't spoken in years. Not since the fight. Not since she walked out and never looked back. And yet here it was, a message from her, tucked away in a box I never knew existed. The silence in the room deepened. I placed the letter on the dresser and paced. I came back to it. Touched it. Left it. The question gnawed at me. Who put it there? When? And why didn't they tell me? Jessica came home later that day, humming quietly, arms full of groceries. I stood by the kitchen doorway and watched her unpack, calm, practiced like she'd done it 1,000 times. Maybe she had. Maybe I'd missed all the other signs. Do you know anything about a wooden box in the closet? I asked. She looked up. A flicker. Small. Barely there. But real. A box? She said too casually. What kind of box? I described it. The look. The feel. Where I found it. She turned her attention back to the carrots. I think it belonged to your mother. Didn't it? No. It didn't. There was a letter inside. From Claire. She paused again, this time longer. Water ran in the sink though the glass was already clean. I didn't read it, I said. Still, she didn't meet my eyes. Old letter probably. You know how things turn up. And that's when I knew. She'd seen it. She knew about it. Maybe even read it. That night I couldn't sleep. I lay beside her, her back to mine, staring at the ceiling. 35 years of marriage. 35 years of shared dinners, birthdays, mortgages. But in that moment, I felt like I was lying next to a stranger. The next morning, while she was at church, I opened the letter. Claire's handwriting was steady, more mature than I remembered, but hers. I could hear her voice in every line. She wrote about her new city, her job, the rescue dog she named Benny. She said she thought about me often. Wondered if I missed her. She hadn't forgotten the fight, but she saw it differently now. Said time had given her clarity. And then, at the very end, came the words that hit like a punch to the chest. I forgive you. I didn't realize I was crying until the words blurred on the page. My daughter had reached out. She had extended an olive branch. And someone I trusted, had hidden it from me. I waited until the afternoon. Then I placed the letter on the kitchen table in front of Jessica and said nothing. She stared at it, then at me. Her lips parted, but no words came. Finally, she whispered, I was trying to protect you. From what? I asked. She looked down. From more hurt. From false hope. You had no right. She nodded. Silent. That night I sat in the garage. No whiskey. No radio. Just me and that letter. I knew what I had to do. I had to find Claire. Even if she had moved on. Even if she didn't want to see me. Because now I had something to say. And she deserved to hear it from me. I never stopped waiting. The next morning, I woke with a sense of urgency I hadn't felt in years. It was the kind of pressure that settles on your chest before you even open your eyes, whispering that something important is waiting. I didn't know where to start. I only knew I had to. Claire hadn't left breadcrumbs. There was no return address on the letter. No email. No phone number. Just her words, and the fragile echo of forgiveness. It wasn't much, but it was more than I'd had in over a decade. I sat at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee growing cold in my hands, staring at the letter. Jessica moved around me in silence, her steps careful, her hands busy. We didn't speak. That seemed to be the new normal. After she left for her errands, I opened my laptop. I started with the basics. Her full name. The city she last lived in. I tried old Facebook accounts, white pages, LinkedIn, anything. I found traces, nothing recent. Claire Harris had vanished from the digital world, or maybe she had never been in it to begin with. I called Ben, our son. He lived 3 states away and we only talked on holidays now. When he picked up, his voice was wary, guarded. "Dad? Everything okay? Have you heard from your sister?" A pause. "Claire? Not in a long time. She called Mom once, a few years ago. Around Christmas, I think. Did she say where she was living?" "No. Just that she was doing fine." I hung up feeling emptier than before. Ben was always closer to Jessica. Claire and I, well, we were too much alike. 2 stubborn people who never backed down first. I found an old address in Oregon. I remembered she moved there after college, chasing a job with a nonprofit. The address was probably 10 years old, but it was something. I mailed a letter. Not the one she wrote me. A new one. My own. I told her I was sorry. That I found her letter. That I didn't know why it was kept from me, but I was grateful for her words. I wrote about my days. About the quiet that filled the house now. I told her I never stopped thinking about her. That there wasn't a day I didn't wonder if she was happy. Then I waited. Days passed. Jessica noticed the change. I was quieter, more distracted. I didn't ask where she was going or when she'd be home. She didn't ask what I was doing on the computer. We were 2 people living parallel lives under one roof. One evening, I came home to find her in the living room with a photo album open on her lap. Pictures of Claire. Of birthdays. Of the beach trip when Claire was 7 and built a lopsided sandcastle that somehow survived the tide. "She always wanted to go back to the ocean," Jessica said softly. "Did she ever?" "I don't know." It was the first honest thing she'd said in weeks. 2 weeks after I sent the letter, I got a response. Not from Claire. From a woman named Emily. She said she now lived at that address, had for years. But she remembered Claire. A kind young woman, dark hair, quiet voice. Said she left suddenly and never came back. She didn't know where she went. I folded the note and placed it beside Claire's letter in the box. The next day, I started calling nonprofits. Places I thought she might work. I pretended to be someone offering an opportunity. Most had no record of her. A few said they'd pass along the message if she worked there. It was like trying to catch smoke. But I kept going. Because something in me had shifted. For years I told myself she left. That she cut us off. That she didn't want us anymore. But now I knew the truth was more complicated. Maybe she had reached out. Maybe she had waited too. I was determined to close the distance. Even if I had to walk every mile of it alone. Weeks passed. I kept sending letters, each more desperate than the last. I reached out to universities, organizations, even an old professor I remembered from a parent-teacher night in Claire's final year. I heard nothing back. The silence was louder than any rejection. Then, one afternoon, something shifted. I was standing in line at the post office, holding yet another envelope, when I saw her. Not Claire. A photograph. On the bulletin board near the door, tucked beneath a flyer for a local concert, was a community newsletter. On the bottom right-hand corner, a smiling woman stood beside a group of children in matching t-shirts. It was a story about a youth reading program at the library in a nearby city, 3 hours north. The woman's name was listed as Claire Monroe. Monroe. She'd changed her name. But that face. That smile. It was her. I tore the page down and left without mailing the letter. My hands were shaking. I sat in my car, staring at the photo, tracing her face with my eyes like I could reach through the page and touch her. There were lines there now, just faint, just age, but her eyes were the same. Still soft. Still a little sad. That night, I showed the photo to Jessica. She studied it in silence. "She looks happy," she said. I didn't answer. Because what I saw wasn't just happiness. It was distance. A new life. One I wasn't part of. I looked up the library. Called them. Asked to speak to Claire Monroe? They said she no longer worked there. I asked if they had a forwarding contact. They hesitated. "I'm sorry," the woman said politely. "We're not allowed to share personal details." Another door, gently but firmly closed. I drove to the town that weekend. I told Jessica I needed air. Truthfully, I just needed to feel like I was moving toward her, even if the road was still unclear. It was a small place. Quiet. A mix of old diners, bookstores, and antique shops. I found the library and stood outside, staring at the glass doors, wondering if she had stood there once like I was now, unsure whether to go in or walk away. Inside, the woman at the desk was kind. She remembered Claire. "She was wonderful with the kids," she said. "They adored her. Do you know if she still lives nearby?" "I think so. She came in not too long ago. With her little boy." Time stopped. "Her what?" "Her son. Maybe 5 or 6 years old. Bright eyes. Talked a mile a minute." He called her Mommy. My heart beat louder than my thoughts. Claire had a child. I was a grandfather. And I hadn't known. I left the library in a daze. Sat in the car for what felt like an hour. She had built a life. She had moved on. She had become a mother, and she had done it without me. Without telling me. Without needing me. And yet, I didn't feel angry. I felt broken. I walked around town, hoping I might see her by chance. I didn't. But I bought a postcard from the bookstore and wrote on the back. "I found your letter. I'm trying to find you. I'm not here to disrupt your life. I just want you to know I never stopped being your dad." I left it at the library, addressed simply to Claire. Then I went home. Jessica was waiting at the kitchen table. She looked up as I walked in. "You saw her?" "Not yet. But she's there." I nodded. Jessica looked down at her hands. "She never forgave me." I sat across from her. For the first time, I didn't feel the need to answer. She knew. That night, I dreamed of Claire as a little girl, standing on the shore, waving to me as the tide pulled her away. I tried to run, but my legs wouldn't move. She disappeared into the horizon. I woke up before dawn. The next day, I drove back. I arrived back in the town before noon. The drive was familiar now, almost calming. Trees lined the two-lane road like silent witnesses to my resolve, swaying slightly as if nodding in encouragement. I didn't know what I was hoping for. A chance encounter? A miracle? Maybe I just wanted to breathe the same air she did. I parked outside the same diner I passed last time. It was the kind of place that hadn't changed in decades. Red vinyl booths, faded checkered floor, a bell that jingled when the door opened. I ordered coffee and sat by the window, watching. Hoping. Hours passed. I walked the streets, lingered outside the bookstore, visited the park. I asked a woman with a stroller if she knew Claire Monroe. She looked me over suspiciously before shaking her head. I didn't blame her. The world doesn't look kindly on older men asking about younger women with children. I returned to the library. The same woman was there. She recognized me. "She hasn't been in today," she said. "But she usually comes by Thursdays." It was Tuesday. I left a second note. This one shorter. "Claire, I came back. Just in case. I'll be here a few days. Your dad." I included my number this time. The next morning, I sat in the park across from the library. It was quiet. A few joggers, a man walking his dog, a group of mothers chatting by the playground. I almost didn't see her. But then I did. She was smaller than I remembered, but her posture was the same, upright, purposeful. Her hair was darker now, pulled back in a low bun. And she was holding a small boy by the hand. He skipped beside her, talking animatedly, waving a plastic dinosaur. She smiled at him, gently corrected something he said, and then, they crossed the street. They walked right past me. I froze. I could have called her name. I could have stood. But I didn't. I just watched. She disappeared into the library. A few minutes later, they came back out. She paused at the door, looked around briefly, as if sensing something. My breath caught. For a moment, our eyes met. I don't know if she recognized me. I stood up slowly. My legs felt heavy. I took one step forward. But then the boy tugged at her sleeve, and she turned away. They walked off. I didn't follow. I went back to the diner. Ordered the same coffee. My hands were shaking again. The next morning, I got a text. From an unknown number. "I saw you yesterday." Just that. No name. But I knew. I responded. "I didn't want to scare you." Minutes passed. Then, "Why now?" I didn't know how to answer. I stared at the screen for a long time before typing. "Because I only just learned you were waiting." Silence. Then, "You came too late." And that was it. No follow-up. No promise of a call. Just silence. I sat in the motel room all night, staring at the phone. Thinking. Remembering. Regretting. In the morning, I drove home. Jessica was in the garden when I arrived. She looked up, wiped her hands on her jeans. "Did you see her?" I nodded. "Talk to her?" "Almost." She didn't press further. We stood there in silence, the smell of soil between us. I went inside. Sat at the kitchen table. And wrote one final letter. To Claire. Not to ask for forgiveness. Not to beg. Just to tell her about me. About who I was. About the things I failed to say when she was younger. The things I wished I could change. The mistakes I made without realizing they were mistakes until it was far too late. I ended with, "If you ever want to know me again, I'm here. And if you don't, I'll understand. But you were always, always loved." I mailed it. And then I waited again. Weeks passed. The mailbox became both a hope and a curse. I checked it each morning, pretending I wasn't expecting anything. Just routine, I told myself. A walk. Some air. But every day, as the box creaked open and revealed nothing but bills or junk, a part of me wilted. Jessica and I barely spoke. We moved like shadows through the same space, touching the same objects, eating at the same table. But something had unraveled. Something that couldn't be mended with silence. I had stopped asking questions. And she had stopped offering explanations. One Friday afternoon, just as I was finishing up mowing the lawn, I saw the mail truck pull away. I walked over, sweat clinging to my shirt, dirt on my hands. I opened the box, and froze. A small white envelope sat alone. My name. No return address. I took it inside, sat at the kitchen table, and stared at it for 10 full minutes. Then I opened it. "Dad, I read your letter. 3 times. I wasn't sure what to feel. I'm still not. I wanted to hate you. For years I did. But hate doesn't hold the way people think it does. It breaks down. Turns to sadness. Then to questions. I've built a life without you. And for the most part, it's been good. But there's always been this quiet, aching space. A blank. When I sent that first letter, I didn't expect anything. I thought maybe it would get lost. Or ignored. I didn't even tell David I sent it. It was something I needed to do for me. When I didn't hear back, I assumed you didn't want to reconnect. I didn't know Mom had hidden it. That hurt. But it made sense. She always wanted to protect the idea of peace, even if it meant avoiding the truth. I saw you at the park. I knew it was you. You looked smaller than I remembered. But sadder, too. You looked like someone carrying a lifetime of what-ifs. I wanted to go to you. I really did. But I didn't know how. Ethan is my world. He's 6 now. Loves dinosaurs, rainstorms, and building things with sticks. He asks about you sometimes. I never told him about you, not because I was ashamed, but because I didn't know what to say. Now I think maybe it's time I try. I don't know what this is, Dad. I don't know what you want from me. But if you're still willing, I'd like to meet. Properly this time. Just coffee. Just a start. Claire. I reread the letter until the ink seemed to blur. Coffee. A start. I called the number she'd included at the bottom. She answered on the second ring. Hi, she said. Her voice was softer than I remembered. Older. But still hers. Hi, I replied. It was all I could manage. We made plans to meet on Sunday. A small cafe in the town where she lived. Neutral ground. Safe space. Jessica didn't ask where I was going when I left that morning. She simply handed me my jacket and nodded. There were no tears. No words. Just the understanding that some things had to be done alone. The cafe was quiet. A bell jingled as I stepped inside. And then I saw her. Claire. She stood slowly. She looked uncertain, maybe even afraid. But she didn't run. And neither did I. We sat across from each other. For a few moments we just looked. No one spoke. Then she smiled. Small. Wounded. Brave. You look tired, she said. You look like your mother. She laughed once. It was short. But real. We talked. About the years between. About the things said and unsaid. About the fight that broke us. About the silence that followed. We didn't solve everything. But we didn't try to. We just opened the door. She showed me a picture of Ethan. Told me he liked rockets now. That he wanted to be an astronaut. Can I meet him? I asked. She hesitated. Then nodded. Maybe next time. I drove home that night with something in my chest I hadn't felt in years. Not regret. Not grief. Hope. When I walked in, Jessica was in the kitchen. She looked up. You saw her? I did. She waited. We talked. And? It's a start. Jessica looked down at her hands. Then back at me. You're going to see her again? Yes. She nodded. I didn't know what that meant for us. But for once, I wasn't afraid of not knowing. Because I'd learned something over the years. Sometimes forgiveness isn't a moment. It's a process. And sometimes love doesn't roar back into your life. Sometimes it just walks in, sits down, and stays. Final line for narration. Next time, you don't have to write. You can just come home.